What I'm going to do is kind of walk through these. The 5 biggest branding myths, because these are a result of doing this for almost 30 years myself, marketing, branding, both companies and individuals. So I found that there are definitely some myths out there, and we're going to tackle those. We're going to debunk those today. So the first one of those is, I'm already branded. Okay, and basically, what we mean by that is somebody who really is sure that because they have a logo, they have consistent colors, they have the photo on materials, they assume themselves to be appropriately branded. And in a sense, you are, but we look at that very, very differently. And I'd like to share a real quick story. It was over 3 years ago that we started this particular program that we do specifically for real estate agents. And I was on the phone with somebody in Arizona, and they said, hey, Tanya, I feel like I'm already pretty well branded in my market. So when I walk into a restaurant, everybody knows, hey, that's Sherry, the realtor. And I said, Sherry, that's a fantastic start, but let me challenge your thought process for a moment. Let's say I walk into that restaurant, I see Sherry, the realtor, but 2 tables to the right, I see Michael, the realtor. And then 3 tables to the left, I see David, the realtor. So now who do I choose? Who am I most likely to connect with or remember, or who is most likely to stand out because I know something about them in advance, right? And most importantly, who am I most likely to remember long after I leave that restaurant? That's what real branding is all about. You see, great branding is not about being known for your profession. It's about being known for being different in your profession. And that's why it's so very important. This particular branding myth, and most people tend to deal with the challenges that come as a result of not standing out one of 3 different ways. One way is they throw money at more marketing tools and think that's going to solve the problem. Second way is they may hire another coach or a trainer to really tell them what they already know they should be doing in many cases. And another is they get a photo shoot or a logo and call it rebranding, and they think one of those 3 things is going to fix everything, when in effect, if you're missing the foundation, what truly sets you apart, those things are not going to help you now. But once you define what truly sets you apart, those things will help you soar. So the marketing tools out there are fantastic. There are a lot of great trainers and coaches, but you got to have all that stuff pulled together. And that's what we mean by the first myth being, I'm already branded, is generally a tough one. It's generally not true to the extent, at least, that we should be branded. All right. And second one.
Myth number 2 is a slogan or a tagline has to say it all. Now, don't get us wrong. If it can say it all, well, then it's a great brand or slogan or tagline. But it does not have to say it all. And you have to keep this in mind, because what we teach in the BrandFace principles is you want the hook. You want something that differentiates you as a authentic and authority in whatever niche of your market that you want to deal in. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't work with anybody. It means that specifically there is a point of differentiation with all of us in our industries, and we need to try to nail that for you, and then you need to try to live that every day. And it's got to be a tagline or a slogan you're very comfortable with, but it doesn't have to say everything. That's what your content is for. And then, of course, BrandFace teaches you not only the right content that you want, but it also teaches you where to put that content that helps to bring everything full circle, because that's what you want. If you just did a tagline and you put it on a billboard somewhere, well, you lose a lot. Right? And we've seen that with clients and seen that happen before. Like specifically, we have a friend in Atlanta, and I'm going to give him a free plug right here. And he came up with the tagline, "My Bald Lawyer," because he's bald on purpose. He shaves his head. And used to, he had this killer billboard, and it would see this bald man on the corner, and then it says mybaldlawyer.com, and business was booming and doing great. But later on, he wanted to change things up, and he took his face off of that, and he took his bald head off of that. And now he's got a few billboards that just say mybaldlawyer.com. And to me, he loses so much of the power with that because we don't have a visual to go along with it. So the point in number 2 is that to debunk that myth is a slogan or tagline doesn't have to say it all. It has to say enough to get people interested in the content. And then we teach you how to take images, elements, photos, and where to put those to showcase not only your slogan, but your content also.
Number 3. Myth is that your brand shouldn't turn people off. Now, this one may surprise a lot of you. You may be really surprised by this one. Actually, it should turn people off, but not necessarily in an offensive way or the way that you might think. The truth of the matter is there are some people who won't fit the goals that you have in mind. There are definitely going to be people that you can say are not the best fit for you. And that's okay, you know, and if you're confused about, you know, who your ideal customer is, well, you may want to start with who you don't want to do business with, because that in reverse will define who you do want to work with. We have a great story. We have a friend out in Los Angeles, and her name is Linda Cruz, and she is an actress. And so we asked her at one point in time, she's a spokesperson for a lot of companies, and we asked her one time, hey, how did your audition go, Linda? And she said, oh, I don't know. Either they're my people or they're not my people. They'll call me back if they're my people. And that struck Michael and I so poignantly that we share this story all of the time because it is true. If you put yourself out there in the right kind of way, you're going to attract your people. But by the same token, you're also going to push away, in essence, the people that don't fit that profile you're trying to reach. And again, not in an offensive way, but definitely in a very natural way. And every really outstanding brand is polarizing in some way. So those that really will attract, maybe, you know, the same brand may also repel some people in a sense. And they might look at it and say, that's really not what I'm looking for. Because a great brand elicits one of 3 responses. One is, that's exactly what I've been looking for. Amazing. The second one is, wow, that looks interesting. Let me learn more. And then the third one is, no, that's not really what I was looking for at all. That last one is just as important as the first 2, because it does help us stay on the right track. So just remember this about this tip: find your people.
And number 4, we hear this sometimes, everyone can say that, so it's not really different. Well, I want to point out first off, all of us are individuals, right? We're individual as people. So it just common sense would tell us that we're also individual in our styles of the way we market, the way we work, the customers that we want to work with, going back to number 3. So here's what we know to be the truth about the immutable laws of marketing, which is also another great book, actually. And one of those is, it's better to be first than it is to be best. Right? And I like Tanya's analogy better, because if you think about who was the first guy on the moon, right, then we know that it was Neil Armstrong. The whole world knows it's Neil Armstrong. We also know that one step behind him was Buzz Aldrin, right? But we don't hear about him as much because he didn't plant the flag. So in Tanya's analogy, plant the flag. That's what is most important. And then I like to add to this. When you're looking for a tagline or a slogan that's going to differentiate you, even if you feel like, okay, I'm not the first person to use that, or I can't get that URL, or you know, there's somebody else in another state or another part of the world that is using that. What's most important to you is in your local area, and then you can grow that anywhere else that you want to grow. But it is better to be first. And when you're looking for a tagline or a slogan, when you hire Tanya and I to do that sort of thing, then we anguish over it. Like, we go through so many questionnaires with you, and we talk about that, and we try to find that one specific thing that really highlights you and your craft, right? And then we plant that flag for you. And what we look for is something that is inarguable. So when you're looking for a tagline, it's okay if everyone else might be able to say that. Ask yourself first, is anybody saying that? Because if they're not, you need to say that, and be sure you plant that flag.
And then the last branding myth is, it's not personal, keep it professional. On the back of all the books that we have, right at the top, it says, people don't do business with a logo, they do business with a person. And people really want to know who they're going to be doing business with, and they want to know the story behind that face. And so there's probably no better demonstration of this than a blog post that I wrote a couple of years back now, 2 or 3 years ago, actually. And you can see it here, it's 2015. And I wrote it based on a conversation that I had with my father. He's quite the character. And so he was visiting in Ohio, and we were on the way from Cincinnati back to Columbus. We had been to my son's volleyball tournament. And we're driving along, and my dad said, he points at a billboard off the side of the road, and he says, "Hey, honey, there's an idea that I had, and nobody has ever done it, and I'm just surprised that nobody's ever done it." And I thought to myself, oh my, this is going to be a dad moment, right? So it turned out to be almost an hour-long conversation about living in a billboard. And if you guys go to brandfacerealestate.com and click on the blog button here, you'll find it titled "The Strangest Branding Conversation Ever." Well, what's really unique about that is that after I did that blog post, number one, it's our most visited blog post ever. It wasn't too long ago that my dad was going to come visit us, and then I sent out an email to our list of people that have signed up for various things from us before, and I wanted to let them know that my dad was coming back in town and kind of just give them a little sneak peek. And so this email went out that said, "The strangest branding conversation I've ever had," and it reads, "My dad is coming to Columbus, Ohio in a few weeks to visit. This brings back a memory from one of his past visits here, which I turned into a blog post that became one of our top viewed posts of all time. I thought I'd share it with you this morning because it very strangely relates to branding. If you are drinking coffee, a word of warning, put this down. You'll thank me later." And yes, almost every visit with Dad turns up a story just like this one. I can't wait to share the next adventure a few weeks down the road. Enjoy, my friends. So the subject line, "The strangest branding conversation I've ever had," this particular email had the highest open rate we have ever had at 39%, and that was over 4,000 people that particular email was sent to. 39% of them opened this email and read it. And a huge percentage of them, I can't remember exactly what percentage now, actually clicked through to the link that we provided in this to go to the blog post and read it, some for the second time and some for the first time. But that just goes to show that people really are interested in who you are as a person behind the scenes, and that's why personal branding is what we're so passionate about.